Provinces outside the Metro Manila are reporting record high new COVID-19 infections. Polomok, South Cotabato, for one, recorded a 63% increase in COVID-19 cases.
COVID-19 ICU beds and wards at the Cotabato Regional and Medical Center in Cotabato City are now operating beyond full capacity.
And the health department has called on LGUs to fortify border controls after 4 more cases of the Delta COVID variant were detected.
We want to prevent further entry of this Delta variant. Lahat ng local governments were informed. Lahat po ng mga regional offices were informed na kailangan bantayan maigi ang Delta variant across our border. So we cannot have non-uniformity in the implementation of our border controls.
3 cities outside Metro Manila are struggling with their hospitals reaching full capacity with COVID-19 cases. Many other areas are finding better vaccination procedures. How can the local governments manage their own COVID-19 outbreaks? We discuss in this episode of The Chiefs. Welcome to this special edition of The Chiefs. I'm Robbie Alampay, and also with us are Ami Pamintuan of the Philippine Star, Lucy Cruz Valdez of News 5, and Ed Lingao of One News. Chiefs, happy Monday.
Happy Monday.
Anong
Happy Monday.
Anong binabantayan natin sa Maynila, Ami? Parang ang gulo na naman ng policy sa walk-in.
Flip-flopping. Kasi nagsipunta yung mga tao doon na tinanggal muna yung walk-in. Dumating, siyempre mag-a-adjust dapat siya ng one day. Kaya lang, nung nag-inspection si Mayor Isko, nakita niya walang tao, pinabalik.
Ano kaya nangyari doon, tingin mo? Ano kaya nangyari doon? Parang it's possible na yung mga ni-line up nila na magpapabakuna, baka hindi natanggap yung message, di ba?
Oo, posible yun.
Kasi wala akong maiisip parang pero parang lahat ng bakuna centers halos, baka too soon di ba?
Dapat nag-adjust kahit one day. Gulo.
Oo nga.
Balik na naman kagulo.
Tapos by the end of the
baka naman for the past few weeks kasi yung mga nakakatanggap ng text, and I presume that they were still texting people over the past few weeks. Wala talaga at all.
Ano lang yun yung QR code lang ang pinapadala sa kanila.
Yes. Wala talagang lista.
Okay. So this was entirely new.
Yes, baka nanibago di ba? Yun nga point ko, parang siguro hindi nila alam kung ano ba to. Ito na ba talaga? Ako na yung nakapila. Baka may
Hindi, tsaka ano ibig sabihin nun?
Kanina, wala nang walk-in. Yun ang in-alert. Kasi may mga taga-Manila dito.
Yes.
Nasa Manila
wala nang walk-in.
In-alert lang, wala nang walk-in.
Tapos
pero
online na lang,
Ami,
tapos papadala ng notice, diba? Pero yun nga, parang baka walang nakatanggap.
ay nga yung tatanong ko, Ami, LCV, ano ibig sabihin nun na QR code ang pinapadala?
Meron, yun ang ipapakita mo lang kapag wala kang ganon, hindi ka pwedeng...
Oo nga.
Pero hindi ibig sabihin... Yes, hindi ibig sabihin na babakunahan ka na free.
You can go there anytime, pero...
the QR code identifies your priority.
Yes.
Na-qualified ka to get a vaccination in Manila.
But that opens up other questions. Like for example, when you tell me na papadalang ka ng QR code, di ba? Ano ibig sabihin nun? Di ba? Kasi...
Naka-register ka na.
Pero...
pangalan mo,
hindi lang yon. May assumption doon na may access ka sa data. May assumption doon na may access ka sa internet. Di ba? Some people, meron lang silang access sa SMS. Pwedeng matanggap nila yung SMS, yung link sa SMS, but they don't necessarily have access to...
Hindi, kinukuha lang yata yung cellphone mo. Sa cellphone kukunin ka ibibigay
Oo nga.
So, hindi kang mag-manual registration, they will get your cellphone number. And then
tapos papadala ka.
Anyway.
Kaya siguro naisip din ni Mayor Isko, baka hindi lahat merong access sa ganyan. Balik na lang yung yung
walk-in.
Kahit sino na lang, walk-in.
Well, in any case, yun nga yung punto. Parang napaka-iksi nung eksperimento pagkatapos nung nakasanayan ng mga tao pagkahaba-haba na walk-in, and then we don't know. But in the meantime, another issue ngayon, yung Delta
Oh, may
variant.
isa
Parang
pa.
wala. Oh.
Yeah.
Ay, hindi. May isa pang gulo.
Oh.
Yung face shield. Diba kaninang umaga sabi, pwede na raw na walang face shield sa labas. Sabi
Pero-
ni, spokesman Harry Roque. Tapos ngayon, just now, sabi, hindi, mandatory pa rin ulit.
Balik, they reach out to the health. No, because of the 4 variants.
Yeah,
Yes,
probably because of the Delta variant. Kasi naglalabasan nga ngayon yung mga balita. Kanina kausap ko si Dr. Nina Gloriani and sinasabi niya nga meron talagang concern kasi sa Delta variant, it's more transmissible. No, that's one. And then secondly, meron talagang concern na it's getting
Could
past,
lead to-
sabi niya nga, the first generation of vaccines.
Vaccine.
Yes, yun ang problema. Kaya
Saka merong cases na nagiging severe. Mas marami yung parang it causes more severity. Parang ganun.
is nga siyang
Yeah.
deadlier. It's looking deadlier.
Yes.
Hindi pa naman nila kinoconclude dyan, pero it's looking deadlier.
Huwag naman
Yeah,
deadly.
Yun ang hinihintay natin ngayon. Magkaka-announcement.
Oh, kasi lahat-
announcement.
Lahat ng bansa ngayon, even the UK is reconsidering. I mean, UK was on its way to relaxing its protocols and now they've had to walk that back and rethink that kasi hindi nila alam kung ano mangyayari dito eh.
Kaya nga.
In the meantime, of course, the big news over the weekend also was that, this also comes backdrop by that big order with Pfizer. Diba? Ilan ba yan? 40 million
20
shots.
million coming. Yeah, 20 million
20
more.
million.
40
Yeah,
million that they
40
ordered
all in
from
all.
Pfizer.
But 20 coming
Over
this June 27. Hindi, merong darating this June.
Yeah.
27.
It brings the total order to 113 million doses. That's good for 57 million Filipinos.
So you would
So,
think, I mean,
We have
hopefully,
more than enough. Sabi.
I mean,
Yeah.
certainly, at least it brings us to, hopefully, some substantial improvement sa NCR, given the ratios that they give for ano. Anyway, sige, we finally have our first guest. We have with us infectious disease specialist, Dr. Ronjin Solante of the San Lazaro Hospital. Good evening, Dr. Solante.
Good evening
Hi, good
again, Doc. Welcome.
Hi, Doc. Good evening po.
Doc, siguro let's start with you. Bring us up to speed. What do we now know or still don't know about the Delta variant?
Okay, so this new variant, actually it's just not new, it's not a new variant. This is the Indian variant, no? And bago lang yung pangalan, Delta variant. It's 60% more highly transmissible compared to the old variant, especially the B117. And it is estimated that if this will cause surge of cases in a population, it will drastically increase also the reproduction number. Because if you have higher transmissibility, then more people will get the infection and more people will get into the hospital. So this is the concern now because globally, there are countries that this variant has been reported and lahat ng trend nila pertaining to the infections related with the variant, tumataas ang mga kaso.
Oo, kasi kanina nakita ko si Dr. Saloma, parang sinasabi niya, parang if I remember correctly, you can infect up to 8 people. Ganun daw ka, but, so it's more transmissible. Is it more deadly?
So far, there are no evidence na it's more deadly than the original variant or compared to the other variant, but we don't have data on that yet. But for now, it's only the data on being highly transmissible.
But
And
if
what
we look
about-
at what happened in India, hindi ba? Talagang it looks so deadly. Ang bilis-bilis mamatay ng mga, yung mga tao and people, the families were complaining na their entire households were getting infected. Ang bilis-bilis daw. Tapos sandaling-sandali, sinugod sa ospital, mamaya, wala na. They passed away. Di ba? There's also that possibility, di ba?
Yeah, ganito kasi yan. Pag tumataas ang kaso, so mataas din ang rate ng kaso sa mga vulnerable populations, no? Especially the 60 years old and above at saka yung may mga comorbidities. Yun naman ang binabantayan natin kasi based on experience, these are also the population na nakakapuno ng mga hospital when we had the surge. So pag tumaas ang kaso, they will also be people like this population and the risk of mortality will also be high among this population.
Pero Doc, wala pa namang community transmission, no? Here in the Philippines.
I would like to believe na mukhang wala pa, no? Kasi kung 17 lang yan, napaka-content lang yan, no? And all of these are coming from
Abroad.
nakitaan nung galing sa abroad, no? So I don't think there's a community transmission going on.
So what do we need to do? Yeah, so what do we need to do internally? I mean, within our borders, no?
Yeah.
Kasi
So-
as far as I know, na-contact trace na yung mga yan. Tapos yung iba sa kanila nag-recover na. So what are the dangers we have to watch out for and make sure will not happen?
Moving forward, I think we still have to strictly implement the border control. Lahat ng mga galing sa labas, yung usual na quarantine protocol natin, they still have to undergo the quarantine number of days, testing, and then monitoring.
Look, I'm curious lang dun sa of course we do genome sequencing to identify the variants, di ba? But at the same time, I understand we do not do genome sequencing naman for all cases kasi that's too much.
Yes.
In which case we only take a sampling. I'm wondering lang what kind of samplings we do so that we're able to say na wala pang community transmission ng variant na Delta. Kasi hindi ba yung the genome sequencing we do lang is only for those who are coming in? We take a sampling from that, the overseas workers?
Hindi. Ed, may guidelines ang Department of Health on that na lahat ng mga laboratories, like for example, if there are unusual number of cases in a particular area, no? So doon magpapadala ka rin ng samples for that, no? Or there are clustering of samples coming from people who died, no? Yung mataas ang mortality sa ganitong area. So, yun yung mga tinitingnan natin kasi para ma-relate natin kung the increase in the case
Okay.
at saka yung mortality is driven by variant.
Variant.
Okay. So it's not you don't do genome sequence sampling of a sector.
Yes.
You do genome sequence sampling of areas of concern.
Yes. Tama.
Okay.
So what are we finding out about, say, Mindanao and Visayas who are experiencing a surge right now? How are we able to establish that those are, purely variants, alpha and beta, but not delta?
Yeah, yun ang medyo hindi pa natin masagot ngayon na Ma'am Lucy, no? Kasi unang-una, in fact, we don't know the geographic mapping of all the positive result dito sa variants of concern na pinapalabas. And it's very important, no? That those are very important questions that we know. Halimbawa sa Mindanao, ano bang variant of concern ang dominant, no? Sa Visayas or sa Iloilo. These are the important data that we need to know based on the importance of why are we doing surveillance on this genomic surveillance.
Okay. Doc, what about kanina nabanggit din ni Dr. Nina Gloriani? I was talking to her. She said another concern with the Delta variant is that it's also suspected that this particular variant escapes, as she said, the first generation of vaccines. What does that mean for us, especially for a country that is using a lot of first generation vaccines?
Well, ang tingin ko dito, no, yes, it can affect, no, but as of now, I still believe that this first generation of vaccines are still effective against these variants of concern. And until such time that we have data na talagang drastically or significantly affected yung efficacy nila or effectiveness, kaya importante ngayon ang surveillance natin doon sa mga nabukunahan, no, kasi wala naman tayong own data so far, no. We rely on data abroad, ano ba yung breakthrough infections with regards to any of these vaccines, tapos ano yung cause ng breakthrough infections, are this because of the variant or not, no? So those are the things that looking forward, we need to know also.
But to be clear, you're saying that there have been instances or documentation of breakthrough infections, but statistically we don't know yet if that's big enough to worry about the efficacy rate of these vaccines.
Yes, correct ka, no? Kasi may nakita na doon sa mga ibang bansa na may mga breakthrough infections, but there are no signals yet na yung cause ng breakthrough infections are really caused by these variants of concern.
So is there discussion now among health experts in the Philippines about the possible need for booster shots? Since mukhang willing naman ang karamihan sa Pilipino na magpa-vaccinate would we be needing booster shots?
No, as of this point in time, no, booster is not. There's no recommendation yet with booster, no, or the third dose. We don't know yet how long our 2 doses of vaccine can give us protection. We will know later siguro once the phase 3 trials are done with their observation, no? Kasi meron naman yung 12 months to 2 years period, no? So kailangan lang natin hintayin ang mga data coming from these vaccine companies who are doing the phase 3 clinical trial.
But how quickly can the manufacturers actually reformulate? I mean, to make sure na that the vaccines they come up with will be stronger against these variants that are already here.
Yeah, that's a good question, Lucy, no? Because Moderna is now they are now on their phase 2 trial of their reformulated vaccine that contained a variant against the variant 351, no? The 1351 that they're planning to implement once it is done effective siya. So probably they will recommend that as the third dose after receiving the 2 doses of Moderna. So that's already in the planning for some of these pharmaceutical companies, no? Astra is also doing that, and I think Pfizer is also doing that. So everyone is really now looking into reformulating some of these vaccines until such time na talagang just to make sure that they are also stable against these variants of concern.
So I guess the question is there wisdom in waiting for the reformulated ones?
Yes, you have to wait for that. No? Kasi ang
Talaga to si Ami. Ikaw, Ami, you're ascribing malicious motives to me.
Ganito yan, no? As of now, talagang hindi pa ganun ka-significant ang impact nitong mga variants of concern, no? Based on the, ang goal pa rin natin is to vaccinate as many as possible as we can, no? And let the data come in with regards to, may mga ibang bansa naman, advanced na yung vaccination rollout nila. So doon natin makikita kung ano yung kailangan pa ba natin ng booster or we need a reformulated bakuna. So that's also the advantage of waiting, no? Kasi may mga bansa na nauna na sa atin and they're doing that already.
Doc, ito kabaliktaran naman nung mga nag-aantay. Meron din naman mga nakakuha na. So for example, nakadalawang Sinovac na, but I know some people who have signed up for so many private sector initiatives. They're on multiple lists. Given the concerns now for first generation vaccines, is there wisdom or is there risk kung sigurista naman sila sa kabilang banda? No? Nakadalawang shots na sa limbawa sa Sinovac, tapos sabihin nila, nakalista na rin ako sa Moderna, kunin ko na rin yung Moderna. Is there wisdom or risk to that?
Well, okay lang yan dahil naman yan sa bakuna naman wala namang overdose sa bakuna no. Ang importante lang dito no at our current rate on vaccine availability konti pa lang no. Like for example, if you get the third dose and then makikita mo yung kapitbahay mo wala pang isang dose yun. I mean, makonsensya ka naman no. So that's my point no. Let everyone get the 2 doses no lahat para lang equal tayo. Tapos, let's see, after the 2 doses, kung anong recommendation ng mga expert, we need to have the third dose or whatever is that as booster, then we'll wait for that recommendation.
Yes, Doc. Pero Doc, medically speaking po, are we saying na it's not medically dangerous to get a third dose from another brand?
Wala namang overdose sa bakuna no? In fact, ang lang natin dito is that we don't recommend getting another separate vaccine with a different platform after receiving the 2 doses, no? Because one is that we don't have those number of vaccines.
We don't have the luxury.
We don't have enough.
Yun lang yun. Tapos there are countries already doing the mix and match, no? But again, the data are still very raw, so we have to wait also for that.
Yes. Well, we ask kasi a lot of us already got our doses from the LGU, but there are also doses coming in via the private sector from the companies
Yeah, pero yung sa mga private companies are for those na hindi pa nabakunahan. Yun ang order doon. Hindi yung nabakunahan ka na sa LGU tapos mag-order ka sa private companies and you need another new batch after getting the first batch of vaccine.
So, kumusta naman yung situation ngayon sa COVID care situation, critical care in your hospital, doctor? Kasi parang hindi yata nagkakatugma yung sinasabi ng Physicians Association sa ang Department of Health. Kumusta yung situation in your hospital?
Well, malaking bagay, no? Kasi for the past weeks na, talagang continuously decreasing na yung mga COVID patients natin. Especially San Lazaro caters mostly for severe and critical, no? So, nakikita natin na talagang merong drastic and significant decrease in the number of cases.
Okay. And what about yung, yung mild, yung mga asymptomatic? Are you getting more?
Wala. No, we don't. Kadalasan kasi hindi nila talagang yan, mga severe and critical.
Okay. So
yung ICU capacity, okay na rin ba? Kasi
Yes.
hindi na umaabot ng mga 90% na okay.
No, but that's dito sa NCR. But now we're also talking about ICU situations in Cotabato, in outside of Metro Manila.
Ibang issue yun.
Meron po, but in the same way that we brought in frontliners from outside NCR here to the NCR, nandun na po sa puntong yun na pinag-uusapan na rin natin sending people out of NCR or at least other parts of the country to other areas that are now facing their own surges.
Yeah, so I think it's important, no, that we have to keep that viability as the healthcare facility. Kasi anytime kung merong surge talaga, especially for those severe and critical, unang mag-suffer dyan, yung healthcare facility.
So tumutulong ba yung for example, San Lazaro Hospital mismo, are you sending any help to the provinces?
Ay, wala pong order pa sa Department of Health, no? So I don't know about yung reinforcement siguro yung sinabi mo, no? So wala pa naman.
Okay.
What about equipment, Doc? Meron bang ganun nga yung parang supplying hospital equipment to other regions? How is that coordinated? I'm just curious, no? So when they say, we're going to send, kunyari, one hospital command, we will send more equipment to these areas. How is that coordinated? Where does that come from? Do they come from hospitals also here? Public hospitals like San Lazaro, ganon?
Hindi, Rochelle. No? So
yun?
it's coming from the central office, no? So it's the one hospital command, no? Then there will be, may mga procurement process yan coming from the national or directly devolved coming from the LGUs. Pero ang nakita namin dito, it's really coming from the national yan. Like, for example, Davao or Zamboanga will request for mga high-flow nasal cannula na machines, no? So, pwedeng sila doon, meron silang emergency fund coming from the Department of Health and they can procure it right there and then. Or merong nabili na ang national and then ipapadala na lang doon.
Pero paano kung talagang equipment na high-end? I don't know what those would be, no? But for example, mga BiPAP, di ba, medyo hindi naman yun basta-basta nabibili dyan sa tabi-tabi. I mean, it's not easy to procure these things when you need them. Where do we get those?
Yeah, so yung mga hospitals, especially government hospitals, may mga proseso on how to procure those, especially na naranasan na natin for almost a year, no? So may mga ganong special procurement, emergency procurement with this mga machines like the high-flow nasal, the mechanical ventilators, at saka yung sinabi mo mga BiPAP machines.
So there's enough of that in the country without having to import or to import.
Yung supply naman, wala namang problema. Nagkakaproblema lang naman tayo pag halimbawa sa isang hospital, ito lang yung capacity mo, 50, and you have more than 80 needing that machine. So mag-additional request ka to supply the 30 kasi kawawa naman yung 30, wala kang ganung machine. And then the 50, you will be able to save the 50 because you have the machine.
Doctor, in trying to contain the variants, what do you want to see? Meron pa ba kayong gustong makitang gawin ng gobyerno?
So far, ang nakita ko dito is sana mapalawak natin yung surveillance, no? Especially with genomic surveillance para at least meron tayong magandang data on that, no? And I really appreciate na they trying their best, no? The Philippine Genome Center to really accommodate all these samples, no? So I think they need help also. Not only that, budget, including the manpower, no? So isa yan, no? Pangalawa, siguro really focus on the rollout of the vaccines because on the other hand, while we are monitoring the variants, we will also look at how many are given the vaccine. Kasi titimbangin natin yan kung tumataas ang variants of concern, tapos pababa naman yun, mabagal yung vaccination natin, medyo makakaproblema tayo dyan.
What about travel restrictions? Should we be looking at that?
Ang sa akin, ang palagi kong sinasabi, I don't agree with restrictions or ban, no, travel ban, but as long as there will be process of testing upon arrival, quarantine upon arrival, then I would say that would be enough to really screen for these variants of concern.
Pero Doc, apparently we don't really have a uniform system here. I mean, we do technically, pero for example, Cebu seems to have its own system that it does not want to align with the directives from Manila.
Yeah, yun ang problema din kasi I think these provinces should really listen to the health experts, no? So they should not just be doing their own protocol without any basis evidence coming from science.
When it comes to the variants, yeah.
But kasi Doc, that brings us back to the question what do you do with Cebu? Kasi it's been a simmering question for 3 weeks already na parang hindi na-resolve eh. Sabi ng Cebu, hindi, ganito gusto namin. Sabi naman na, hindi, dapat sumunod kayo. Pero walang nangyayari.
Yeah. So I think they have their own way of looking at it in terms of the border control, no? So for whatever reason they don't follow the national protocol, we don't know how are they doing with that protocol.
Hey, Doc, I remember just a few weeks back, mainit na usapin yung Octa Research had this formula or was suggesting this formula of since the majority of the cases were in Metro Manila, the majority of the vaccines itutok muna natin sa Metro Manila. That also protects the rest of the country and so on and so forth. But that seems so long ago, given the reports of how Metro Manila is under control, but we're now seeing surges in at least 3 cities. ICU capacities. I won't ask you, I mean, we don't mind if you share your thoughts, but I guess ang tanong ko is, how far are we right now from that situation that just a few weeks ago?
I think the order now is that yung equity ng vaccine, no, sa mga provinces, especially for those provinces who are reporting surge of cases, it should be available in these provinces also, not just focusing on Metro Manila at this point in time.
Okay. Dr. Ron Jean Sulante, infectious disease expert from San Lazaro Hospital. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you.
Thanks, Doc.
Thank you, Doc.
Please stay with us. The Chiefs will be right back. Welcome back, the Chiefs here on One News. I'm Robbie Alampay. Still with us are Ami Pamintuan, Lucy Cruz Valdez, and Ed Lingao. And now joining us, the South Cotabato Governor Reynaldo Tamayo Jr. Good evening, Governor Tamayo.
Magandang gabi.
Hindi po.
Magandang gabi.
Magandang gabi po sa inyo. Gov, kamusta po sa South Cotabato? We're getting reports that Coronadal, yung ICU rate daw sa Coronadal, 100% na. Totoo po ba to? At kamusta ang buong South Cotabato?
Sa ngayon, okay naman. Nasa more or less 72% ICU bed capacity na yung nagamit natin. Noong nakarang linggo, umabot tayo ng 100%. Kaya nga lang, bumaba ito noong Sabado hanggang ngayon ay nasa 72% pa rin tayo.
Sa ICU po yan. Ano? Kamusta po yung all the rest of hospital capacity?
Nung mga nakaraang araw, masyadong mataas talaga, no? Nasa 90% tayo. Pero ngayon nasa na lang tayo, nasa more or less mga 80% na lang tayo. Meron tayong monitoring na one hospital command center na kung saan nakikita natin lahat ng available na mga beds ng ICU patients natin at kasama na rin yung mga ICU capacity na meron tayo, yung mga available beds.
Kumusta po ba ang hospital situation in the sense of yung bilang ng mga ospital, bilang ng public hospitals at primary hospitals dyan po sa Coronadal? Ano po ba ang siguro patient to hospital or to hospital bed ratio? Population to hospital bed?
Actually, Ma'am Lochi, nung nakaraang taon, nung pag-upisa talaga ng COVID sa probinsya ng South Cotabato, way back 2020, March, nag-create kami ng isang hospital na COVID hospital intended for COVID patients lang talaga. So lahat ng mga private hospitals and government hospitals, nag-ambag-ambag ito at nag-create kami yung isang government hospital namin. Ginawa talaga namin siyang COVID hospital intended for COVID patient na actually pwede siya magka-host ng more or less mga 100 to 150 patients. Na-prepare talaga namin yun. Kasi yung mga private individuals, nag-ambag-ambag, kasama na rin yung mga medical practitioners natin, yung mga private doctors, nurses, talagang nag-volunteer doon. Ano? Kaya nga lang, na-donate kasi ito noong 2019 pa sa Department of Health na gawin siyang isang regional hospital. So ngayon, on process yung turnover namin, on process yung transition ng provincial district hospital namin into a regional hospital na ginawa naming COVID hospital noon. Kaya noong mga nakaraang buwan lang, ay talagang napilitan na pinush namin lahat ng private hospitals, including government hospitals, na magkaroon na ng mag-i-avail na talaga yung 20% ng kanilang capacity na magiging COVID
lang.
Beds.
Oo.
20% of their capacity.
So ano na mangyayari dito sa tinayo ninyong COVID center kung gagawin ng regional? Wala na yon, hindi na yon COVID center ngayon.
Ongoing yung transition pero hindi na siya magiging COVID hospital na after ng transition dahil magpo-function na siya ngayon as level 1 hospital na ang kayang i-accommodate lang na COVID patients is only 20. So kaya ang ginawa ko, yung provincial hospital namin, minadali ko kagad yung renovation at kaya nga na mapapansin ng mga nakaraang linggo na talagang 100% dahil nga yung hospital namin ongoing yung renovation.
So nabawasan yung capacity.
Yeah, from 10 patients lang. Naging 20 patients na pwedeng i-cater. Hanggang ngayon, kaya na namin abutin yung 79 patients, which is yung patients namin ngayon nasa 18 lang. Ngayon, yung ICU rooms, Noong umpisa, meron kaming 5 ICU rooms doon sa Provincial Hospital na dati ito, nandoon siya sa COVID Hospital. Nandoon yung mga mechanical ventilators namin. So ngayon, ang iba, nilipat na namin dito. Nag-expand ako into 10 rooms ICU. Pero meron kami mga partners na mga level 3 hospital sa probinsya like DAP-MC, yung Pingoy Hospital. Umaabot rin sila ngayon ng mga tag 25 patients. May mga ICU rooms rin sila na intended for COVID patients lang. Andun rin yung Ala Valley Hospital natin. Kaya ngayon natutulungan na eh. Kasi noon sana, ang plano namin ay i-save lahat ng hospital na hindi na dapat mag-cater ng COVID patients at isahin na lang sila para lahat ng hospital ay ma-free from COVID at maka-entertain ng ibang sakit sa probinsya. Kaya lang nagka-problema dahil kailangan na namin ibibigay sa Department of Health at gawin na siyang isang regional hospital.
Governor, yun daw South Cotabato ang pinakamataas ngayon ng COVID cases sa buong region. Kailan po nag-umpisa yung, may nakita ba kayong surge? Mabilis ba yung pagkalat? Kasi ang inaalala ngayon, baka dumating na daw dyan yung mga variants. Ano po yung mga preparasyon nyo para kung sakasakali nga na variant na yan, na mas mabilis nga daw, highly transmissible, and possibly deadlier?
Opo, actually, ang preparado naman ang probinsya ng South Cotabato kasi kahit ganun kataas, kung titingnan mo naman yung positivity rate, napakataas. Nag-number 1 niya kami sa positivity rate. Ibig sabihin, yung tinitest namin na mga suspect, mataas yung chance na pag trace ka namin ay talagang positive ka. Umabot kami ng 80% positivity rate.
Wow.
Ibig sabihin, sa 100 na tinitest namin, 80 talaga ang nagpa-positive because of our effective contact tracing. So, meron kaming sariling contact tracing developed by our IT department sa provincial government April pa noong 2020. Dahil sa ganda ng contact tracing namin, mabilis yung tracing at talagang makikita mo na mataas talaga ang positivity rate. Ang isang reason kung bakit umakyat ito, ang cases sa South Cotabato, dahil naka-purchase kami ng kumulang mga 5,000 cartridges ng Gen Expert ang probinsya ng South Cotabato. Dumating rin yung 3,000 plus na cartridges ng Department of Health. So more or less mga 7,000, 8,000. So ganun kadami ang test na ginawa namin, doon lumabas talaga ang maraming cases.
Kumusta naman yung quarantine facilities nyo kapag na-contact trace nyo? Mas marami bang na-hospital o ikina-quarantine sa facility or home quarantine?
Actually, meron kaming 11 LGUs, 10 munisipyo, isang syudad. Halos na perfect yung isolation facilities at quarantine facilities sa 10 LGUs 2 months ago. Kaya lang nagka-problema kami sa Coronadal City dahil nga wala masyadong, hindi maganda yung pag-isolate nila ng mga positive dahil maraming home quarantine na mga positive. So, sinabihan ko si Mayor na kailangan talaga, Mayor, ipo-pull out natin ito sa bahay kasi ang problema kasi nito, pag hindi mo pinull out yan sa mga bahay, ma-infect niya yung mga kasama niya sa bahay, madagdagan naman yung number of days na maka-quarantine sila, so mabilis yung pag-spread talaga ng virus pag home quarantine. So lately, maybe 2 weeks ago, dinandahan ng pinull out ng city government yung mga positive nila papunta na doon sa isolation facilities nila ngayon. So sa ngayon, minomonitor ko sila kung talagang 100% na kasi yung mga LGUs like Pulumulok, mataas na yung cases sa Pulumulok pero lahat sila nasa isolation facilities. Wala talagang positive na wala sa isolation. Napakabilis na makontrol at makontain yung mga positive. So umakyat siya, biglang bumaba ito. Tapos dahil nandoon yung mga kumpanya, maraming mga employees na nanggaling sa ibang probinsya at LGU, minsan tumataas talaga yung cases na naman. Pero dahil nakukontain nila, talagang bumababa rin kaagad.
Gov.
So ito yung mga ginawa namin ng paraan na dapat masunod ng lahat ng mga LGUs ngayon dito sa South Cotabato.
Gov, in the meantime, kamusta naman po ang access nyo sa bakuna?
Nung nakaraang linggo, napadala kami ng 12,000 plus. Isa sa kami yung pinakamataas na probinsya sa buong rehiyon na napadalan ng bakuna. May mga LGUs na nasa A4 na tayo. Ibig sabihin yung mga employees na. Pero may mga LGUs pa rin na nasa senior citizen pa rin, nasa A3 pa lang. No? Pero pinagsasabihan natin yung mga LGUs na dapat mabilis yung rollout nila para mabilis rin yung pagpaparating ng mga bakuna galing sa Department of Health.
Are you looking at the need for more vaccines, Gob, or sapat na yan? Kasi with that number, you're only looking at 1.3% of your population na mababakunahan.
Actually, sabi nga ni Secretary Galvez, may darating ngayong June ng 11 million. By July, another 11 million. By August, another 17 million. So kung mapapansin niyo, paakyat na ng paakyat tayo doon sa target natin na 70% or 60% ng population natin mababakunahan sa Pilipinas. Pero kami sa provincial government, nag-allocate pa rin kami ng funds if in case talaga na madidelay at may chance na makabili kami ng vaccine, ay bibili talaga ang provincial government ng vaccine para mapabilis ang pag-roll out ng vaccines dito sa ating probinsya.
Okay,
Kumusta
Gob, I'm
naman
looking at
po
your other
yung
numbers.
vaccine?
I think you have 1,477 COVID positive patients for the whole province as against 915,000 the population. So mga 0.16%, 0.16% lamang yung infected sa population nyo. That seems like a relatively good number. I'm curious lang, how are you screening your borders? Kasi I'm trying to imagine how you're doing it. South Cotabato, of course, has no airport. Pero nasa pagitan kayo ng malalaking areas like Cotabato in north and Jensan in the south. So daanan kayo ng tao. At mas mahirap minsan mag-manage ng borders pag walang airport kasi hindi mo naman na-screen yung mga taong dumadaan sa nagmamaneho.
Kaya actually, ang kagandahan naman sa South Cotabato, dahil walang entry points.
Walang entry points.
Hindi siya
Doon
madaling
lang,
puntahan din,
before
in
ka
a way.
papasok ng South Cotabato,
Oo.
na-check na nila.
Yeah.
Na-check na nila sa Jansan, na-check
Yeah.
na sa Davao.
Opo.
na-check na sa-
Pero Gob, daanan ng tao yan kasi highway lang yan.
Screen
Kumbaga, wala namang PCR testing sa highway, hindi ka sa airport.
Yeah, oo. Pero yun nga, ang kagandahan naman, ang SOC Sergeant kasi, ang Region 12 kasi, very strict ang borders namin sa Region 12. Pag makapasok ka sa Region 12, talagang na-test ka na Na-test ka na from entry point mo sa Cotabato, dadaan ka ng Sultan Kudarat, na-test ka na. Na-test ka na from airport to Jansan, na-test ka na from Davao to Jansan, papasok ka ng SOC Sergeant, talagang strict rin ang borders natin doon. So ngayon, kung mapapansin ninyo, walang yung Indian variant. Wala pang presensya niyan sa South Cotabato pero meron ng iilan sa Davao. Kaya medyo strict na rin yung borders natin sa Sarangani. So Sarangani, papasok ka ng Davao, papasok ka ng Sarangani, papasok ka ng Jansan bago ka pa makapasok ng South Cotabato. So kami dito, meron na kami mga, pag may mga barangay na sa tingin namin may mga bago muka, talagang chine-check at inimbestigahan ito ng mga tao natin sa barangay, mga barangay captains natin, mga officials, mga tanod at yung mga barangay health workers natin. Ganun kahigpit, ganun kami kahigpit sa mga pumapasok sa South Cotabato.
Kumusta naman po ang pagtanggap ng mga bakuna dyan sa inyo? Meron po bang vaccine hesitancy dyan na katulad dito?
Actually, nag-uubusan talaga ang bilis ng rollout namin dito. Actually, wala kaming problema dahil maaga namin napaintindi sa kanila kung ano kaimportante ang vaccine. Ibig sabihin, yung mga tao namin ngayon dito nagre-request pa for additional vaccine na kung pwede mapadamihan. Umabot na nga kami ng A4 sa ilang lugar sa South Cotabato, ilang LGUs Ibig sabihin, talagang naintindihan ng mga tao yung importante ng vaccine. Napakaganda lang ng pag-disseminate ng information namin dito sa probinsya ng South Cotabato with regards sa vaccine.
May attempt ba kayo na alamin kung saan ang galing yung mga infection sa probinsya? Saan kaya nanggaling yun?
Nagsimula talaga tayo sa mga LSI and ROF. Actually, nung 2020, talagang nag-rent kami ng plane. Pinauwi namin yung aming mga tao from Manila, from Luzon, Iloilo, and Cebu. No? Talagang pinauwi namin yung mga kababayan namin. Doon dumami na kasi zero talaga yung zero positive kami hanggang I think April eh. Pero nung
itong
pumasok na
pag-affect
yun,
ngayon,
dumami.
itong taon na to, yung pag-surge niya, saan kaya siya?
Actually, ang nangyari, nagkaroon lang ng napakaraming cases right after na dumami yung mga cartridges natin sa testing. Ibig sabihin, yung
so
virus,
na-trace
So
talaga.
maraming asymptomatic
Na-trace talaga.
siguro.
symptomatic.
Yeah.
Pero ngayon, ako'y natutuwa dahil napakaganda ng positivity rate namin. Sabi ko, wag natin tingnan yung numbers. Kung ilan yung nagpa-positive. Ang tingnan natin kung gaano tayo kabilis na matrace yung takbo ng virus dito sa ating probinsya. Yun naman pinaka-importante sa atin ngayon.
Governor, kinukumusta natin ngayon ng South Cotabato, yung buong Soc-Sargent region, precisely because tumataas yung mga numbers. Let's take time also na kumustahin kayo throughout this entire COVID period. Matagal-tagal din po to. How has that affected your economy? I mean, maraming mga produkto dyan sa Soc-Sargent area, from tuna to pineapples to vegetables. How has the entire COVID affected the region?
Okay, ilang areas lang naman ng agricultural sector. Yung Soc-Sargent kasi, yung Region 12 kasi, naka-focus ito, malaki yung porsyento ng agriculture pagdating sa ekonomiya namin dito. At sa agriculture sector naman, napakaliit lang yung mga areas na talagang apektado ng COVID. Kasi kung titignan mo yung nagkataon rin kasi na may mga ESF at yung South Cotabato ay ESF free. Kami yung napadala ng mga baboy dyan sa Luzon. Pagdating naman sa itlog, talagang ito naman yung number one na talagang source talaga ngayon ng pagkain ng mga tao dahil mabilis, mura, kaya nagkaubusan rin. Pagdating naman sa mga vegetables, yung mga local markets lang namin, talagang okay pa ang takbo. Ang problema lang namin, yung siniship out namin dyan sa Luzon, nasa mga restaurants na nagsisirado. So, may mga naapektuhan, may mga umakyat naman. Balansyado pa rin yung ekonomiya sa probinsya ng South Cotabato and sa buong Soc-Sargent area actually.
Hindi ba problema yung mga bagyo ngayon na flooding at medyo kulang yata kayo ng evacuation centers? Kumusta naman yon? Di ba delikado kung medyo masikip dun sa evacuation center? Delikado yung virus transmission?
Actually, ma'am, ang South Cotabato kasi ever since hindi talaga kami dinadaanan ng bagyo. Meron lang mga baha. Pag lumakas yung ulan, may mga baha sa mga iilang mga areas. Pero still, nami-maintain namin yung health protocols na ini-impose ng mga local government. Dalawang munisipyo ang apektado noong nakaraang malakas ang ulan, ang munisipyo ng Tantangan at Norala dahil sila yung nasa mababa na area. Pero yung evacuation naman nila, still nami-maintain namin yung minimum health protocols doon sa kanilang mga evacuation centers.
So, Governor, halimbawa, in terms of the number of deaths, mababa ba yung, kumusta yung mga figures na yun, no? Gayong 75% na kanyo ang ICU capacity. So we imagine na marami na rin severe cases. But how is the recovery rate and the fatality rate?
Actually, may mga namamatay man talaga na sa isang linggo may 7, may 6, ganun. Marami. Pero ang gusto ko lang talagang i-emphasize, ma'am, yung sinasabi kasi na 100% na yung ICU na nagagamit natin ngayon sa probinsya. Ang number kasi ng ICU beds noong mga panahon na yan, ay nasa more or less nasa ano lang nasa mga 15 to 20 lang po. Ngayon,
madaling mapuno.
nag-expand kami, kaya madaling mapuno. Nag-expand kami ngayon, kaya makikita mo bumababa na yung percentage na meron dyan sa aming one hospital command center.
And you have enough personnel kasi iba rin ang medical personnel demands ng requirements ng COVID, hindi ho ba? I mean,
Opo,
hindi yan.
sa ngayon okay pa naman dahil nadidistribute pa namin sa mga hospitals at talagang napakaganda yung distribution because of this system na one hospital command system na real-time ang updating gumawa yung IT department natin sa provincial government ng isang web application na real-time ma-update ng hospital yung mga bagong pasok ng COVID patients nila. So doon pa lang, makikita natin, pag puno dito, matapong agad natin sa kabila. So dahil nadidistribute sila, yung mga personnels na meron ng South Cotabato na ma-maximize namin dito sa aming probinsya.
Okay.
So ano ba talaga, ano yung total ICU bed capacity as of now sa buong probinsya?
By percentage, ma'am, nasa 72% na ang na-utilize natin. Pero
Ilan siya?
ang capacity natin, ma'am, more or less, nasa mga 25 to 30.
25 to 30. Yun yung number, yung total number?
Yeah.
So,
Pero
maliit lang.
kaya
mabilis yun.
sa liit niya, mapapansin mo kaagad yung percentage na 100%. Pero ngayon, ma'am, ongoing yung expansion namin. Kung sana na-implement lang yung isang taon na kasi, kung sana naipagpatuloy lang yung centralized hospital namin, yung may hospital talaga, intended for COVID patients lang at nag-ambag-ambag lang ng personnel yung mga hospitals, gaya na ginawa namin nung nakaraang taon, ay napakabilis itong i-expand ang mga ICU beds natin dahil may building talaga intended for ICU patients lang ng COVID. Kaya nga lang, hindi naman posible yan ngayon dahil kailangan, hindi rin kami pwedeng matigil lang doon. Kailangan rin namin ma-establish na talaga yung regional hospital. Kaya ongoing ngayon ang transition. Pero by next week, ma'am, mag-expect kayo na bababa ang utilization rate namin dahil tataas na ang bed capacity namin sa ICU hospital natin.
Okay. At sana nga po mangyari yan. Ay talagang pinagdadasal nating lahat yan para sa South Cotabato at saka sa lahat ng Pilipino. South Cotabato Governor Reynaldo Tamayo Jr., maraming salamat po.
Thank you, Gov.
Ingat po kayo.
Salamat, Gov.
Maraming
That's all for this special edition of The Chiefs. But we hope what was discussed here will keep the conversation going. Before we go, a reminder to our viewers, mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. I'm Robbie Alampay.
I'm Ami Paminton of the Philippine Star.
I'm Lucy Cruz Valdez of News 5.
I'm Edwin Gao. We are One News.